Greetings, Math 154 students. Welcome to another edition of your notes. And this is going to be Unit 3, homework number 1. Simple and compound interest is our topic. And in part 1 of this video, we're going to look at just the simple interest part. So let's go ahead and begin. So as you may already be aware from checking out your weekly overview pages and announcements in the course, in this unit, we're going to learn about interest, savings annuities, payout annuities, loans, and just generally how to be an overall financially savvy citizen. All right, so you're going to see a lot of real life application here in the math that we do with Unit 3. Pro tip, guys. Have your Unit 3 Math 154, your finance formula sheet. You want to have that formula sheet printed and in front of you. You're going to need that formula sheet as you work on your notes, your assignments, and quizzes throughout the unit. So let's talk about part number 1 here, which is simple interest. So we should probably begin by defining interest. I'm sure most of us have some kind of an understanding of what interest is. You've probably heard of interest before, used in various ways. So some examples of interest you might know about might be your credit card interest. Okay, most of us have a credit card with an interest rate. You may also be aware of interest that you earn, such as in a savings account at a bank. But essentially here, interest is a lender's fee, okay? It's a lender's fee. So it's a fee paid for the use of money. So when we use money, that can go really both ways here. So like we said, you can earn interest. So you earn interest when you deposit your money in a bank. So that would be, when you're earning money in a savings account that you may have at your local financial institution. And we pay interest, which most of us are probably more familiar with the pay interest part, when you borrow money. So you might have borrowed money on your credit card. Oops, borrow. Let's say borrowed when you borrow money. You may have borrowed money for a car loan, right? Or some other type of loan that you maybe bought a large purchase. And that is, you're paying interest. And we're going to look at that throughout this unit. All right, so as I said before, we're going to talk about simple interest. So what is simple interest? Simple interest is an agreement. It's a simple interest agreement where the loan is fixed for a period of time. And at the end of the time, the borrower repays the lender the initial amount borrowed plus the interest earned. So you will notice on the top of your Math 154 formula sheet, if you have that out, you will see some formulas there for simple interest. So we're going to define what those variables mean and explore those formulas a little bit more. So one of the formulas says I is equal to P sub 0 times R times T. Another formula that you see on that formula sheet says A is equal to P sub 0 plus I, or another way to represent that is P sub 0 plus not P sub 0 plus, P sub 0 times, got my plus in the wrong spot, P sub 0 times 1 plus R times T, okay? So there's another way you can represent that. So what do all these variables mean? All right, so I is the interest. Okay, so that's the amount of interest. That's a dollar amount. The A value. The A value is the amount in the account at the end of the given period. Oops, at the end of a given period. So at the end of this given period, this is when you have the principal plus the interest. By the way, guys, the principal means not what you had in school. The principal is your initial amount that you borrow, which is, in our case, is defined as the P sub 0. P sub 0 is your principal. So remember back in unit 2, oops, I spelled that wrong. In unit 2, you talked about the initial amount, or when you were talking about some functions. So P sub 0 is the initial amount or the principal. So principal or initial amount. And that's the initial amount that you can either invest or that you borrowed. So the P sub 0, if you were taking out a loan, that's the initial amount that you borrowed. If you're putting money in the bank, it's the amount invested. All right, the R value. The R value is the interest rate. So you've seen that before, like on credit cards and in banks, you'll see a percentage there. But remember, from unit 1, when we're working with a percent, we want to put this in decimal form. Okay, so make sure you put this in decimal form. And then finally, T is our time in years generally. So just a little note here about the time, generally the unit of time for simple interest will be in years, okay? So it says down here, the units of measurement for time, years, month, etc., should match the time period for the interest rate. And generally an interest rate is given over the course of 1 year, all right? So you will see, it's almost always an interest rate for a year. So sometimes, though, you'll be given a time value in months, and you'll need to get that converted into years. And you can, again, do that by dividing the number of months by 12, because there are 12 months per year. All right, so let's go ahead, guys, and do some example problems on simple interest. All right, so here would be something that most of us maybe have done at one time, borrowing money from a relative or friend. So example 1. You borrowed $5,000 from a relative. You promised to pay it back in 1 year at 4% interest. How much will you pay your relative? All right, I like to always start out and identify what I know in the problem, what I'm looking for, and then identify my formula. So what do I know? Well, I know how much I borrowed. So the amount I borrowed is my principal amount, my initial amount. That's $5,000. I know that I have an interest rate of 4%, and as a decimal, that's 0.04. And I know that I'm going to pay the money back at the end of 1 year, so my T value is a year. What I'm trying to find out here is how much I pay my relative, which is the A value, the amount I'm going to pay back at the end of the time period. So I'm going to use the second formula, A equals P sub 0 times 1 plus RT. So substituting in here, we have A equals 5,000 times 1 plus interest rate is a decimal, 0.04 times my T value, which is 1, is equal to the following. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at how this looks as a Desmos calculation. Guys, I said Desmos, but again, it's very important that you decide what calculator you're going to use and become familiar with that. I'm going to model in this video using the Desmos scientific calculator. So here we are on our calculator page, and then all we need to do here is just simply type in exactly as I had it written there. So that would be 5,000 parentheses 1 plus 0 times 1 close. And we have our amount. So at the end of the 1 year time period, we're going to be paying back our relative $5,200. Okay, so $5,200. So by the way, guys, if you borrowed $5,000, that means your relative made $200 off of this loan. Okay, you paid the fee, the interest amount was $200 that you paid to borrow the $5,000. All right, so let's take a look at another example here. This time you want to know how much you should invest at 3.7% simple interest in order to earn $75 in interest in 14 months. All right, so we know our interest rate. Our interest rate is 3.7%. which as a decimal is 0.037. We know that we're going to earn $75 in interest, so that means I equals 75, and we know our t value is equal to 14 months. We need to get the t value in time, though, because we're talking about years. So we're going to take care of that in a minute. But we also want to know here, what are we trying to figure out? How much we should invest, the initial amount, that's our p sub 0. So in this case, because I know the I value, I want to use the formula I equals p sub 0 times r times t. All right, now let's take a look at that time for a minute. We need 14 months. So we're going to divide that by 12. So that's going to get us 14 over 12 years. You want to use a fraction. Do not make that a decimal. You're going to get round off error and you're going to cause yourself frustration. Okay, so by the way, in terms of your conversion factors from unit 1, this would be 14 months times 1 year for every 12 months, which is how we end up with this 14 over 12. The unit of months will cancel here, and you're left with 14 over 12, which will get us our unit of years. All right, so let's substitute into our formula. We know we have an interest amount of $75. We don't know what our p sub 0 is. We're trying to find that. Interest rate of 0.037, and then times 14 over 12. So this is all multiplied together. Use a little bit of old algebra from your high school days. Divide out the 0.037 times 14 over 12. So that means that p sub 0 is equal to 75 divided by 0.037 times 14 over 12. Now, guys, again, whatever calculator you're using, you want to know how to enter this in one step. Don't piecemeal. Don't get decimals. Don't get round off. You're just going to frustrate yourself and get inaccurate answers. On Desmos, you can click the fraction button over here on the right, 75 on the numerator, the denominator 0.037 times 14 over 12. Done. Let the calculator do all the heavy lifting for you. We're going to round to 2 decimal places because that's how much we round to in money. So we have $1,737.45. All right, so that means, again, that we need to deposit now $1,737.45 in the account today. And when we come back in 14 months, we're going to have earned $75 in interest. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and take a look here at example 3. What is the simple interest rate on a $1,400 investment paying $430.92 in interest in 8.1 years? All right, so what do we know here? Well, we know our initial investment of $1,400, and we know that we earned $430.92 in interest, which is my I value, and I did this in 8.1 years. Well, I'm looking for my interest rate, my R value. So again, since I know what the I value is, I'm going to use the formula I equals p sub 0 times R times T. And we're going to substitute in everything we know. So we have $430.92 is equal to p sub 0, 1,400, times our interest rate, which we don't know, R, times the number of years, 8.1. Now look over here on the right, guys, everything's a product. The inverse of a product is division. So I'm going to divide out what I don't want, which is the 1,400 times 8.1. So multiply out, and then we have R equals $430.92 over 1,400 times 8.1. Now again, whatever calculator you choose to use, know how to operate it. We don't want to enter in piecemeals. We want everything entered all at once. So again, I'm going to model for you with Desmos. I have a fraction, and the numerator there is my $430.92. Denominator, 1,400 times 8.1. Type in, whoops. What is going on here? Oh, yeah. Oh, we got a small number, 0.038. All right, Oh yeah, we're trying to find our interest rate. Okay, 0.038. Let me write that down. All right, so we come out with this. R equals 0.038. Now, we want percent. So the calculator gave us a decimal answer. So since we want a percent, we're going to have to move the decimal point 1, 2. So this means that we have 3.8% is our interest rate. Okay. All right. Questions, issues on example 3 before we take a look here at example 4. All right. Now, if you do have questions, what should you do? You got it. You need to email your instructor. All right. Let's take a look at number 4. Graduation is 3 years away and you want to have $1,200 available for a trip. If your bank's offering a 3-year CD paying 4.8% simple interest, how much do you need to put in the CD to have money for the trip? Okay, guys, CD. That doesn't mean compact disc. It's not something that plays music. It's not something with a computer program. It's not something that watches movies. A CD stands for, in the banking world, is called a certificate of deposit. It's called a certificate of deposit. And really all that is, that's just a name of an investment tool, a savings account where you can invest money and save money. All right, so what do we know here? We know that we're going to invest or that we want to have in the account. That means account balance, A, is $1,200. And we're going to be doing this for 3 years because graduation is 3 years away. And we've got an interest rate of 4.8%, which is 0.048. What we want to know is how much money do I need to take out of my bank now or my paycheck right now so I can have the money for the trip? That's the P sub 0. So since I know the A value, I'm going to use the fact that A equals P sub 0 times 1 plus R times T. All right, so subbing in here, we've got 1,200 is equal to P sub 0, which I don't know, times 1 plus 0.048 times 3. Now I want P sub 0 by itself, so I'm going to divide out the 1 plus 0.048 times 3. So let's divide that out on each side. All right, and again, we don't want to be in the habit of piecemealing and getting decimals and rounding things off. That is a very problematic way of thinking. We want to be able to type in once, get answer. That's what we're going to do again here on our Desmos calculator. So again, let's find out how much we need in our bank account or how much we need to deposit today so that we can have $1,200 in the bank for a trip. So we've got 1,200 divided by 1 plus 0.048 times 3. So it looks like we need $1,048.95. All right, so let's go ahead and put that in here. We need $1,048.95. All right. You guys are doing great. Let's move on here and take a look here at example number 5. Okay, suppose you have $1,800 in your savings account at the end of a certain time period. You invested $1,100 at 4.68% simple annual interest rate. How long in years was your money invested? All right, so what do we know here? Well, we know that we have $1,800 in the account. That's my A value. And we know that we started the investment, the initial deposit was $1,100 with an interest rate of 4.68% or 0.0468 as a decimal. We're trying to find out how many years this took. So we're looking for T. Since I know my A value, I'm going to use the fact that A equals P sub 0 times 1 plus RT. All right, so setting this thing up here, we've got 1,800 is equal to 1,100 times 1 plus 0.0468 times my T value, or my, my T value. Oh, I don't know T. All right, we call that T. All right, so back in your Algebra 1 days, you might be tempted to go ahead and distribute the 1,100. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to choose not to do that. And the reason I don't distribute the 1100 is because 1100 times a decimal gives me another decimal, and then I have to round that decimal, and I don't want to have to get involved with rounding. I don't want any rounding until the very final answer. So what we're going to do, another way to get rid of this 1100 in front of the parentheses is to use inverse operation of division. So divide it out. So I have 1800 over 1100, and on the right-hand side, now I don't have the 1100 in front of the parentheses, so now I don't need the parentheses anymore. Okay, so now I'm just going to solve this algebra equation. I want to isolate the term with the variables, so I'm going to subtract 1 from each side. When you subtract 1 from each side, that doesn't mean you have 1799 over 1100. It means you have 1800 over 1100 minus 1 equal to 0.0468t. Then we're going to divide out the number in front of the t to get t by itself. And again, we haven't touched our calculator yet. So t equals 1800 over 1100 minus 1, all divided by 0.0468. This is what we want to enter into our calculator so we get the most accurate answer. Okay, so go into our calculator. Get that over here for you. All right, we need a fraction. And in the numerator, we had 1800 divided by 1100. Oops, 1100. Right arrow minus 1. Down arrow to the denominator. And we're going to divide by 0.0468. And we should be coming out with, looks like 13.59. That would be in years. Okay, so let's go ahead and record our answer here. So was it 13.59? I think it was a 7. Or about, if we round to the nearest tenth, we'll say 13.6 years. Okay, so you want, again, no rounding until the very end. And we round. Questions, issues on example 5 before we go to example 6. All right, and again, remember, if you have a question, you need to email your instructor through Canvas inbox, through email, however you choose to do that. All right, example 6, guys. You deposit $14.10 in the savings account paying 1.3% simple interest. How much interest will you earn in 6 years? All right, so what do we know? We know our initial deposit of P sub 0 is $14.10 at an interest rate of 1.3%, which means we're at 0.013 as a decimal. And how time here is 6 years. What we're looking for here is the I value, the interest rate. We have a form, or the interest amount, excuse me. So we have a formula that tells us how to calculate how much interest we earn. So the interest I is equal to P sub 0 times R times T. All right, so subbing in, we have I equals 1410 times 0.013 times 6. And let's see how much money we're going to earn. So we're going to go over here to our calculator. And we've got 1410 times 0.013 times 6. Looks like we made $109.98 in interest. Okay, so let's put that in here. $109.68. Now we want to know how much is in the bank account at the end of 6 years. All right. So remember, our initial amount is 1410. Interest rate is a decimal, 0.013, and our time value here is 6. We're not looking for the interest. This time we're looking for the amount in the account, the A value. So that formula, A equals P sub 0 times 1 plus RT. I'll show you 2 options here to do this. So we'll call this option number 1. Option 1 is to use this formula. All right, so that says A equals 1410 times 0.013. Whoops. I forgot the 1 plus, you guys. Sorry about that. I got too excited to find out how much money I've got. All right, replay. All right, 1410 times 1 plus 0.013 times 6. All right, so let's see how much money we've got in the account. All right, so 1410 times 1 plus 0.013 times 6. So it looks like we've got $1,519.98. So $1,519.98. All right, that's option one. Option two is simply to take the P sub 0 plus the interest earned. P sub 0 was the original amount, which was 1410, plus the interest we earned, that was from part A, the $109.68. And if you add that together, let me prove it to you on the calculator right now, we should be coming out with 1519.98. So again, here we go, 1410 plus the interest earned. There it is, 1519.98. Okay. So either option you choose to do is fine, just however you want to do it. There is no, you have to do it as long as you're doing it in mathematically correct way here. All right, so let's do a little summary here of simple interest. So we covered two main formulas. We covered interest equals P sub 0 times R times T. You want to use that formula when you're given a P sub 0, an R, or a T value, and you're trying to look for the interest earned, okay? If you are given the interest earned in two of the other variables, then you would want to use this formula. So essentially, if you're finding the interest amount, or if you're looking for the interest amount, you can use the formula here in green. All right, when to use the other formula, the A equals P sub 0 times 1 plus RT. If you're given everything but the A value, if you're looking for the amount in the account, or if you're given the A value and then, one of the other two variables, either the interest rate or the time, then I would recommend using what you see there in the blue, okay? All right, so that wraps up part one here, our discussion on the simple interest. Stay tuned for a future video clip here on for the second half of your notes, which is going to cover compound interest. I hope you enjoyed watching and you've learned a lot. Again, if you have questions or issues, please contact your instructor. Remember, you can always work with the free math tutors in the ARC also. Have a great rest of your day, your night, your morning, whatever time of day this is for you.